Hey, Dominators, Rico Garcia here. I hope you're excited about this one because we're going to be talking about some of my favorite things, which is commercial selling as well as digital marketer. And our guest today, Jeff Carrier over at Restoration Digital Marketing and Restoration ERP, is probably one of these best candidates that I could possibly think of that has both sides of this market straddled, right? And the reason for that is regardless if you're not doing a lot of commercial selling as of yet, there's a great section in this podcast where we're going to be talking about the foundations of marketing and how that eventually is going to translate into making commercial sales that much easier. And then also, if you are doing commercial sales, how the number one, what kind of value you should actually be bringing to the table, right? Outside of, dropping by unannounced and dropping off candies or donuts or coffee or whatever it is that a lot of novice salespeople do, but also how the digital presence can go ahead and help you create more value for these commercial prospects that you're trying to do business with. This is an amazing conversation. We cover a lot of ground, so make sure that you grab a pen and a sheet of paper, take some notes, and let's just dive right into the interview with Jeff Carrier.
Welcome to the Restoration Domination Podcast, where you learn actionable advice that moves the needle and helps service-based businesses dominate. Here's your host, Rico Garcia Jr.
What is up, Restoration Dominators? Rico Garcia here. Jeff, man, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Excited.
So you ready to help us dominate?
I am ready to dominate. Yes.
Awesome. Cool, man. So do me a favor, fill in some of the gaps on the intro for those that may not be familiar with the name, may not be familiar with your companies. Just kind of give us a quick little 1-2 punch about, who you are, what you're doing in the industry, and then kind of follow that up with how you got into the game to begin with.
All right. So I've been in the industry for a little over 10 years now. I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, and was running sales and marketing for an independent restoration firm. And while I was there, the company had been around for quite a while, since '87, part of DKI for a while, well connected in the industry. We were doing some really good things on the sales and marketing fronts, always had kind of nearby and friends of the owners checking out what we're doing online wise, sales wise. And long story short, we eventually one day decided to start an agency from outside the restoration company. And we did that. I helped start it and run it with them, and it was very successful. We decided to try and replicate what we were doing to other cities and locations for these restoration companies and see if we could have success. We were struggling to find our own outsourced vendors in my degrees in marketing, so I knew a lot of kind of what had to be done. And so that led to RDM, which I not too long ago recently fully purchased and now run. And in between that, we started Restoration ERP. In the middle of all the conversations of getting online sales, which is predominantly residential, I would have a lot of conversations with restoration owners on how to get more commercial sales. And again, with my background in running commercial account managers, we were doing that predominantly through doing disaster ERPs, a consultative value-based approach, which I am a strong proponent of. Saw that there was kind of a need in the market for a more advanced solution. The strategy itself has worked and has been around since the day of time, but there was no online cloud-based solution for some reason. There was not one that was like branded to independent restorers to help them compete with large companies. So, I was in a position where I worked with some developers. We developed a tool, and that's when Restoration ERP was born, right smack in the dab in the middle of COVID, June 2020. And what led me to the restoration industry was really just blind luck, probably like most people. I moved from Boston doing sales up there to North Carolina and landed with the restoration company.
Nice. Blind luck. Yeah, that's I would say that's a large number of the people in the restoration arena. But hey, once you get into the business has this way of just, just really making you fall in love with it, right? So many different things and so many different aspects of the business that it's always exciting, right? So I'm really excited about this conversation because this, for me personally, covers my two most favorite aspects, right? One of them being marketing and the other being sales. So let's
Mhm.
start with, and actually, you know what? I'll put the ball in your court. Where do you really, where should a company look at this, right? Because again, if you're a new restoration contractor, you're stepping into the game, you're like, man, I want to get my hands on these big commercial deals, right? But on the flip side of the
Mhm.
scenario, you don't even have an online presence. You need residential deals. You need anything to kind of keep you afloat. So it's kind of like one of these things. Like, what comes first? Should you build a system geared towards hunting commercial projects, or do you worry about your online presence? Like, what's more important, the marketing piece first, or having a system in place for selling these big commercial projects?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I actually get this asked a good bit because we have a lot of startup companies that find us online. If you search water damage marketing or anything like that, we come up as you would expect, hopefully an SEO agency too. And we have literally companies that are starting with us from scratch, and they'll ask that question. And I think you definitely want to and need to start on the online presence realm first. In the residential, you knock on some doors, you set up your agents and whatever kind of local community kind of relationships and jobs, and then start building your online presence with Google and your website. Make it look and feel like you can obviously attain these commercial jobs. Because really, when it comes to commercial, you're going to need probably a salesperson to go after all of this and set this up. Which, if you're starting day one, you are the salesperson as the owner, so that makes it a little more difficult. So I think you definitely start off on the digital side.
So let's kind of start off there then, right? What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people that are doing when it comes down to their general marketing practices and their philosophy when it comes down to marketing and marketing their business as well as themselves properly?
Well, if you're starting a restoration business and you want to get found on Google, you have to think of it in like the most simplistic terms of, we need to do regular, like what a real business would do. And I say that because sometimes we get hired to do a job where the owner's not necessarily doing normal business ownership practices, as in like signing up for the BBB, signing up for the local chamber of commerce, getting themselves out into local community. This actually does a lot for your online presence and authority in providing local geographic signals to Google. So I'm not saying that you're going to get necessarily work from the chamber, and this is a lot of times why people might not gravitate towards signing up for the chamber or doing other sponsorships in their local community. But when it comes to an online presence, those are actually really valuable signals and links for Google. So that would be one of the things that I always really encourage.
Can you like expand on that a little bit more and like literally make it paint by numbers and explain like I understand the power of what you're saying, but I also know that if I was oblivious to what some of the lingo is within the marketing arena, I'd be like, wait, what signals? What are you talking about? And really what I think you're referring to is, even with like the BBB, local chamber of commerce, every time that you sign up, which by the way, it thinks like, I don't know, whatever it is, 200, $300 for the year. It's a bargain in a lot of cases just because of the backlink, right? So is that what you're referring to? And can you
Mhm.
kind of expand on that?
Yeah. Yeah, so if I were to start a business, like the first thing I'm doing is I'm getting, if you did a search for water damage restoration in your local market, whatever town you're in, I'm in Asheville. The top 3 businesses on the local map pack, right? Those are the 3 businesses next to the map. That doesn't say sponsored. Sometimes the 4th spot is sponsored. I'm going to look at those 3 businesses. I'm going to see how many reviews they have. I have to match that. Part of the numbers, part of the game with Google is we're going to match everything that Google is telling us is important.
Mm.
So that's the map pack, right? So we're going to get all the reviews and we're going to spend whatever we need to. Starbucks gift cards, we've thrown out and done all kinds of ideas. Then if we want to rank organically, we need actual authority. Like, I can't create water damage austin.com and have it be perfectly technically sound, well written, and ranked tomorrow, because I have zero authority that online. Google understands this. It's the same way if you start a business, you're creating local relationships with bankers, and you're going to these where you swap leads and stuff, so on and so forth, and people start to, you start getting word of mouth. Well, you have to do that online. And so to go to these, I would then, the next part after getting all the reviews is I would spend 5 to 10K on signing up for every local association and sponsorship that I can. And this is, again, if we're kind of starting off from scratch, because what we want is Google's going to crawl that website, the Chamber of Commerce. They're going to have their member directory. That member directory is going to point to your site. And then there's something that we call, link authority, which is that trust going from the Chamber of Commerce to your site. And that's, at the end of the day, what's going to help your website rank, along with some other technical stuff. But you're never going to rank if you have zero authority and trust. Right. So you have to get that from day one. Like you have to get it. And I would do those two things first, and you're going to be off to a really good head start, and matching some of the competition that's been there for a very long time, potentially. This doesn't happen overnight, but those are the first two kind of pillars that you're going to need. And if you want to know, and I want to provide as much like actionable insight as I can here, Rico, but if you want to know where your site is at, or if you ever want to double check to see if your SEO agency is doing anything, just go to one of these tools. Don't go to the ones that show you how many business listings are accurate. Those are not very helpful. Go to like Ahrefs backlink checker, right? A is in alpha, HEF, backlink checker. Put in your domain and see what your score is. And then you have an idea of how well you're doing. You want to be at least, 15. If you got a 1 and you've been working with a company for a very long time, you probably have a backlink authority issue.
Right. And backlinking is probably one of these things inside of the marketing arena that a lot of people have trouble with, because it's tedious, and there's, in a lot of cases, there's a lot of outreach. So why am I mentioning that, and why am I adding color to what you just said? Because I really want people to understand, because I understand how contractors think, and they're like, I'm never going to go to a Chamber of Commerce. I don't want to do this. Let me just put this out there. Even if you never intend on going to a BNI, even if you never intend on going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, spend the $200, spend the $250, spend whatever that yearly due is, because that little link that they give you from the Chamber of Commerce or from the BBB or from whatever it is over to your website is so worth it. Because there's tons of people that you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on that, all their job is to build and create backlinks. And sometimes they'll have tons of backlinks that have zero authority by comparison to the Chamber of Commerce and the BBB and all of that good jazz. So it's money so well spent, especially if you're looking to rank and to get that local authority. And I wouldn't even say like one Chamber of Commerce, right? Like, for example, like here, there's just tons of little cities and towns, and a lot of these have their own. Well, if you kind of like map out your general area, like this is my service area and everything in between, and you get all of these links, Google is eventually going to be like, oh, they are a local authority.
100, and that's exactly how it works, because they can tell from other trusted signals, Chamber of Commerce, that is, that you are located in this area and that you do what, is in the what's on your website. And so that way they can understand it. And that goes into, their knowledge graph and so on and so forth. And we work with a number of bloggers that helps us accomplish this as well. But there's nothing that can compare to all the local signals that we have to, at the end of the day, get and accomplish. And every owner can do this completely by themselves. They don't need an agency to scour the web with all of these blogs and home construction articles and that's like next level stuff. But you can get a really long runway with just all of your local stuff, downtown associations, all of the examples that you described.
And then after that, what's like the next step? Like where should people go? Like after they've gone and done their, they've gotten their links, they've done all of this stuff, what should the restoration contractor start to kind of look out on the horizon and be like, all right, cool, this is kind of what I should be doing next?
Well, from a website perspective, if you haven't already completely got a masterful looking website, which is not hard to do nowadays. I mean, masterful as in like a good looking, clean looking website. It makes you look, 5 to 10 times the size that you are. And you have proper internal pages.
Mhm.
And again, I'm sticking again more towards this digital side because all of this can be done at, I think, a relatively lower cost before you start hiring a person to go out and market for you, do sales for you. You want to make sure that your site has all of the internal landing pages that is appropriate to all your services. There's
Mhm.
so many times where we're looking at a site and analyzing it, and they have like fire and smoke on the same page. They
Mhm.
have water damage, and that's it. Well, there's a lot of different types of water damages, and homeowners don't type in just water damage. They type in, I've got standing water in my flooded basement, how to remove it. So we've got, water removal and extraction. We've got flooded basements. All of those topics have some specificness to them that is different than just water damage itself, like category 3 and contaminants with flood and groundwater, right? That kind of stuff, if we can match up our content on the website far closer to the searcher's intent, which is what they type into to Google, we have a much better chance of showing up versus relying on one page, the water page, to then all of a sudden show up for flooding and basements and water extraction and roof leaks, right?
Mhm.
And once you understand it like that, then you want to build out the breadth of your website.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. So in some cases, less is more.
Well, you want to be specific to the searcher's intent. So I think that you want to have individual pages that speak to individual specific services. Even though for a restoration company, water and flood, you're kind of handling it the same.
Yeah, it's kind of one
You're
and the
removing the
same.
water. Yeah, you're removing the water before you start doing the demo, and then you start the drying. But for Google's perspective, really having these individual internal landing pages is very helpful.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So yeah, because we've all seen that, right? Where it's like, this one, it's like water and then everything that they do with water, and it's like this really, really long page. And back in the day, it was like, oh wow, this is really authoritative because it looks like a Wikipedia page. But it's like, yeah, but then you're also confusing the hell out of Google, and none of it is very specific, right? You don't have that coherent message from search to the reader, the user experience, which is what Google cares about, to take them back and be like, all right, cool, this is what I was looking for, this is exactly what I found, right? So that's what I meant by less is more, because it's more laser focused on whatever it is that the user is searching for, correct?
I got you. And without trying to make this sound too confusing at the same time, because Google does make it confusing, by the way, because they also don't tell us you did right here and you did wrong here.
Right.
But when you're on those pages and it is more specific to, say, a flooded basement, the content still has to be well thought out and in depth. Like you can't have a paragraph on each of these pages. So keeping that in mind, you still have to have good in-depth content on each of these individual pages. So all of this, tends to lead to a little bit of work, but yeah, that's the way to do it. That's the best strategy.
Right. And here's the beauty about like that kind of work is that once you start getting really good at producing this kind of content, right, and you've already kind of built the foundation of a really good, powerful website for your business, and it's not just a regular digital business card, right? Like it's actually doing something, it's being found, and it's kind of what the only reason why you got a website. Like nobody wants a website. Like nobody wakes up and is like, I want a website today. Like that's not what you want. What you want to get is calls. You want someone to be able to look for a service. They happen to find your website, and that phone call, and that website produces a phone call or some kind of a form fill or something, right? So it goes beyond just having that regular website. But then it's
You have to treat it.
Yeah,
I was going to say, you have to treat it to your point, exactly like your point. You have to treat it like a salesperson. It's they're selling for you.
Yep.
So it's like, do I want to hire this salesperson? Well, no, I want the end goal they're supposed to provide and produce, which is definitely phone calls. And we have to equip our website appropriately so that way when a homeowner does land on it, they can get fully educated. They can feel confident in that we can handle their job for them. They can feel confident that we've done a lot of these other jobs. They can feel confident that we can work with their insurance. These are all little things that we have to add to the site, right?
How
In
much
order
is too
to
much
infect.
when it comes down to a website, right? Because there's all these, we know that there's all of these things that should be communicated, right? But then I guess here's the million dollar question, I think. Like, how do you communicate a lot of or a few of these things through perception as opposed to building out this huge website because you're trying to, specifically say, hey, by the way, we've done a ton of insurance jobs, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, how do you, do you need to explicitly have it all, or can you just kind of, some of these things, is it just a matter of perception?
I think that's a really good question. And, that's why you see so many different websites out there. And I build like let's call it a similar site from one person to the next. And one person will love it. One person will be like, I think this is bad.
Right.
We're
right.
like, whoa. And, but I think that you are trying to add certain elements that you can repeat through the site through the internal pages. So like you might have like we like to call them like trust like sections or trust signals on the site that explicitly and quickly and easily through like, let's say, an icon and something else that says, hey, here's why you should call us. We're family and locally owned. We've been in business for XYZ. We are certified. We show up in marked vehicles. And it's like this section that we can kind of copy and paste to all the internal pages. That helps replicate that communicates a lot just in that little section, because a lot of people don't want to read paragraphs either. So that is good from a user experience for sure. And then we can put that on the fire, water, mold, smoke pages, and that helps explain and communicate some of those trust signals very quickly. I think where it becomes too much is when people are trying to capture and do too much, possibly with the headers sometimes, pop-ups. We all jump on a site and we hate it when we see like a pop-up. So we got to keep that in mind. We want to make sure that it is user friendly. And the consumer is not going to get annoyed, and that the pop-up doesn't distort the width of the mobile device. Just simple stuff like that, and just make it simple and clean and straight to the point. Along with all the other information, you're going to have success.
At what point? So, and it's funny because there's so many different ways to approach this, right? How much of a working knowledge do you feel business owners should have with regards to how this process works, right? Because all business owners, we all want is we just want to pick up the phone, call somebody and be like, hey, my business is about to go under, or I'm just starting off and I've got this money to burn, but I need to go ahead and have prospects now. And they feel like a lot of like SEO companies are magicians, right? Like they can make, they just snap their fingers and then business just comes to them, right? How much do you think that business owners should be informing themselves of how this process works? And then also, once they have that information, what kind of signals should they be looking for with a marketing company if they choose to hire a marketing company to be like, hey, yo, these are the people that I trust. I really like these people. They understand what I understand to be true, and I'm going to go ahead and give them my business.
Yeah, I think those are some excellent questions, and some of the things that, not just the restoration industry SEO agencies, I'm sure every vertical has those challenges as well. And I've written articles for CNR, questions to ask your digital marketing agency, right? Like, please read it and please follow through on this. I think that if you're looking for signals, the ultimate signal is the calls, right? Before we get the calls, we have to get rankings, because we can't get the phone calls if we don't show up. So that's the precursor KPI, right? Now, I already told you how to look to see if, you know how to get calls. They're going to track it for you. You have your own call dashboard. That's straightforward. So calls start coming in. That's a lot easier to manage. At that point, you want to make sure you're tweaking and updating information. You're not losing ground. Calls are coming in and hopefully increasing, right? Before that, you want to check out the rankings. Typically, any company can provide you that you're going up in ranking. The part that a lot of people will have issues with is the part before that, which is why are we not ranking, or why are we not ranking enough? because if we were ranking enough, then we're getting enough calls.
Right.
And the part before that is typically a couple things, which is one, do you have enough reviews? Two, do you have all of the appropriate pages built out correctly? Like if you've been working with a company and you only have a water page and not a water removal, and you have a fire and smoke page that's combined on one, something to consider.
Right.
And then third, we need that authority. So go to Ahrefs, put in your website, and see if you're getting authority. Because if you're not increasing your authority, and this is typically one report that is not being sent to owners, is how many backlinks do we get? What's our increased authority? When we increase authority, we're going to increase rank. That's the precursor to that. And that's how business owners can approach this. It's going to be too tough for them to, the same way that'd be too tough for me to just know how to write Xactimate, right? But if you want to be able to evaluate in a smart and correct way, that's how I would start with the first level. Then the second should increase by rankings, and then from there, you look at your heat map, make sure your reviews are good, make sure you're in the local map pack, and calls should happen. Like I've never seen too often where, hey guys, I'm showing up everywhere and I get no phone calls,
and I'm getting zero.
Unless you're in a really small town,
right? What's going on? Yeah. I'm like ranked number 1 and I'm getting like no phone calls, right? It typically doesn't happen, right? And this is all great because I wanted to kind of get the foundation. I always want to talk about marketing, and I know that it sounds repetitive to a lot of people, maybe that, especially even if they've because I know I've heard this stuff a million times, but it doesn't make it any less important. Right. And I'm sure, Jeff, to some degree, you've spoken about it a million times and you're like, man, am I getting repetitive? Maybe, right? But some of the best things in life are meant to be said over and over again, because it really is about getting back to basics. It's about just doing the right thing, not necessarily trying to be cute and fancy right out of the gate and try to find a shortcut. Sometimes the long cut is the shortcut, right? Sometimes building that really good foundation, that really strong website, making sure that you get all the right signals, making sure that you spend the time getting all of the reviews, like all of this stuff, which is tedious. Because let's face it, nobody in the restoration arena wants to do that. We want to go do a job like today. We want to put down fans and, cut out drywall. But all of the stuff, once it's done properly, that pays dividends for a long time, right? Where it's as opposed to
a very long time,
right? So pay to play. If you're doing PPC, the moment you stop spending money, that's it. You're not getting any more leads. But SEO, a good web presence, in theory, you shouldn't do it. Probably wouldn't recommend it. But in theory, you could throw your hands up one day after you've got enough of a margin on everybody else and your competitors. And guess what? Your phone's still going to ring. That's nice.
It's still going. It's very nice. And that's why we try and focus on that side. I had a demo recently or a call and he thought we were only going to talk PPC. And I was like, oh no, I'd much rather focus on your actual online presence. We're going to get way better return on investment if we actually nail this thing correctly. PPC is just pay to play. I mean, I don't know how many times I've had conversations with owners. They've spent so much money on spending on PPC, trying to figure it out. They've done it themselves. They've run through different companies. We don't even do PPC only campaigns.
Well, I'll tell you. But we're good. So then this isn't going to step on your toes because you don't really do that. I'm going to tell you my personal opinion, and I'd love for you to really challenge me on this and challenge my logic. But this is the reason why I believe most companies that are doing PPC lose their shirt on PPC, because they are. First of all, they have zero plan on what to do after they get the click. And now our industry is so expensive because Google knows what shit's worth, right? If we had a barber shop and we wanted to go ahead and get immediate traffic and run an ad for haircut place near me or barber near me, Google knows that this is a $25, $40, maybe $100 haircut at best. They're not going to charge $99 for a click, but they know that insurance, water mitigation, mold remediation, that's big bucks. So they know that they can charge more for that, right? But then the business owners that are coming in, they're not coming in with a game plan for, okay, well, I'm going for, bottom of the funnel, quick and easy, people that are already, they know what they're looking for. I know that I'm going to pay more for that. But then once I get the click, if I don't get them to convert right then and there, Okay, that's it. I guess I just spent that money, right? They don't have a game plan for a remarketing campaign. How do they get them back? They have zero. So basically, they're willing to spend $80, $90, $100 sometimes on a click, depending on geographically where you're located. But then they're not willing to spend an additional $2 to re-nurture that person to get them back.
Yeah, they're not. And I'll give you a couple of things too. They'll typically, they're hiring someone to do this. And, I come from the industry. So there's a couple of things that we do to try and help minimize some of that cost. One is, unless you're like amazing at mold, which some people are, most people rather not, right? Unless they have to, remove that from your campaign. You know how many just random search queries are around mold that you just spend money on? It's like half your budget goes to that. And you're like, oh, why didn't I get any water losses? And then also, I know you guys are 24 hours, but if you look at the conversions, like you have the weirdos after midnight. So you're getting clicks after midnight. I know there's losses after midnight. I've been there before, but find a way to first get an efficient campaign going. And what we do is we stop it at like 10 p.m.
Yeah, I would stop mine at 9:30, like, because I didn't want to get because I knew. Well, there's a couple of things. The weirdos are out, number one, right? And then also,
the weirdos are out.
And then here's the other thing: the marketers, the guys that are building campaigns, the majority of them are like jacked up on Red Bull and Monster, and this is when they're doing competitive research. 9:30, my campaigns were off.
Yep. But I've confirmed this with the actual data. Like, still, all the conversions are coming in through normal business hours for the most part. Up until 6 p.m., that's when all the calls are happening. That's when all the conversions are happening.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because not a lot of people have spoken about this, and I'd love to get your take on it. When it comes down to PPC, and I know that you guys refuse to do PPC, I'm huge on pay to play, right?
Because no, we do it. We don't. Sorry, we do. I won't only run a PPC campaign. It just feels like someone's trying to do a shortcut. It's like, if it's part of a plan, it's part of a campaign, and we can make it work, which I'll never force anyone to stick to, then great, we can test it out. But I just want to clarify that.
Yeah. So, and thank you for doing that. One of the big mistakes that I see companies make when it comes down to PPC on the Google Ads setting, right, is that they're going for bottom of the funnel. They're going for people that are ready to buy right now. Obviously, too long of a keyword search is probably not ideal in a lot of cases, but these are very expensive keywords to bid on. But there's a lot of other peripheral things that, as a water mitigation specialist, as a water mitigation company, right, I know that if I could just get my message in front of the people that are doing search queries. Let's say, for example, if someone's looking for an emergency tarping service or emergency roof repair or emergency plumber, I don't know, because I don't have the exact stats, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there's a small percentage of those people that were looking for emergency tarping and or emergency plumbers that are going to need either water mitigation or mold remediation, if not now, very, very soon in the future. But on PPC, you can't spend your budget that way because it's just way too much money. And then the indoctrination process is way too long, because even though you're offering water mitigation and someone is looking right now for an emergency plumber, they're not quite connecting the dots yet, right? They don't know that they might have a mold problem later. But now this is where YouTube comes in. And this is where I think it's a really intelligent way to budget some of your, to allocate some of your budget. Because now you can search, you can go ahead and put an ad campaign on YouTube based on the ad searches, on the query searches that people are doing on Google, right? How do you feel? Do you feel that enough people are using that kind of a strategy? And in order to limit the overall amount of money that they're spending and still trying to go ahead and canvas the area in a little bit more of a wider way?
So, I mean, I think a couple of good things you really hit on there. One is reallocating the money, right? Like, they're spending it month over month, and we know it turns off. It doesn't like have an actual evergreen approach because it's PPC. I don't know how many times I've talked to an owner and I said, can you please just spend this on a salesperson? We're spending $5,000 a month. Like, salesperson is going to generate hopefully $500K on the year and then build on that. And the other part that you were getting to, which is something that we want to, and we're actually working with some of our larger clients on, which sounded like a little bit of like doing this inbound marketing, this
Mm-hmm.
other stuff that you're hitting these other longer search terms, these longer keyword search queries when it comes to not necessarily bottom of the funnel, as you mentioned. They're higher up. They don't know that they need a restoration company yet. They're trying to learn about, is my roof having a water leak and what do I do next?
Right.
And this works really good for a lot of companies that have a lot of cleaning, services, because there's a lot of companies that do a lot of different services, right? And especially now with the plumbing and one Tom, if you're doing duct cleaning, you should be educating throughout the entire brevity of what I like to call topic clusters of inbound marketing. So you have
Mm-hmm.
duct cleaning. When's the best time to do duct cleaning?
Right.
What does that entail? These are different, and this could be, to your point, on YouTube and point to an internal landing page, but these could be articles and resource sections that capture homeowners well before they're ready to buy. And then by the time they are ready to buy, they've already been on your site and like, oh yeah, I read that other article by XYZ restoration company. They were telling me about the benefits of duct cleaning and indoor air quality. It's kind of like branding reinforce and hopefully generating leads at the same time.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. And there's so many things that you could do in order to get creative so that you can go ahead and stretch your ad dollars out more, just by simply thinking outside the box, right? Like one of the things, and what I was really referring to with regards to YouTube versus, let's say, regular Google ads, search ads, is we know that these clicks are really expensive. Not everybody is going to be an ideal client, but if I know that there's an area that, and I don't do, let's say, emergency roof repair, and I'm not a plumber, but I know that there's a percentage of those people that are going to be, I could just go ahead and run a YouTube ad saying, hey, by the way, so-and-so, I saw that you were recently searching for emergency plumbers. Odds are is you might have a situation for mold. And now all of that I could pretty much say fast enough within 5 seconds to where either A, they're going to be like, oh yeah, you're right, I was looking for a plumber and I may have mold, this sounds interesting, let me listen to the ad. Or they might just hit the skip button, and now all of a sudden I still got an impression, I still got my message out there to this initial person that could potentially be a prospect. I'm just putting my feeler out there, and it didn't cost me anything, but the return on that, because you're spending, depending on your area, I mean, sometimes like a nickel, less than a nickel for, a video view,
It's so
depending on,
cheap. Yeah.
it's so ridiculously cheap that all of a sudden, even if you're like, well, Rico, out of 1,000 people, let's say that only 2 of them need mold remediation, or 3, like, it doesn't matter because it's so cheap that it's possibly less expensive to get somebody off of the YouTube platform than it is to get off of search. Here's the kicker though. Nobody wants to do video.
They don't want to do video. You could do display in the same kind of fashion. Again, you're paying pennies just paying pennies, really. Like if you set up a pretty good one, we've got some display campaigns. We spend like you could literally spend $100 or $200 a month and get hundreds of thousands of impressions. I mean, if you're going for, trying to go upstream, if you're trying to get broad reach versus spending, $100 on that one click, these are different ways, because there's a lot of times people are, where we started at the very beginning. Okay, what's step one? Okay, what should they do next? What should they do next? At some point, you're going to find yourself, you're running a successful restoration company, and you're going to want to keep doing more. You want to keep putting yourself out there. And these are really cost-effective ways to do them.
That's awesome. So kind of switching gears, we want to go ahead and talk about now how all of this presence, right? Now we've established this presence. Now we're ready to go and, actually go chase down some commercial deals. And within this is not only how do we approach it, the sales aspect, but then also what kind of tools do we have as commercial sales reps that we should have in our arsenal? And that's kind of like where we want to go ahead and take the conversation. But before you help me understand all of this, just take a quick moment to thank our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Hey, real quick, are you a restoration pro looking to hire top talent inside of our industry? We all know that labor shortages are real, but I may have a solution for you, okay? And that is Wylander. Why? Well, very simple. They are the go-to recruiting company inside of the restoration arena. Well, the reason I say that is very simple. They've got proofs in the pudding. They've got over 1,000 placements in all 50 states, plus Canada. And what that means is that they not only have the expertise, but more importantly, they have the connections to find that top industry talent that you and your team are looking for. So stop wasting time. Stop sifting through tons and tons of resumes and just conducting endless interviews. Let Wylander do the heavy lifting for you and help you find that right person to help your company succeed. Call Wylander today and start building that dream team inside of the restoration arena. Dominators, let's face it, your company will make it or break it on the backs of your estimating team. But if we're honest here for a second, what tools have you actually given them to succeed? The Actionable Profile is the newest tool inside of your estimator's toolbox, or at the very least, it should be. The Actionable Xactimate Profile is a data-driven solution that provides real-time estimating guidance on the fly. It checks for both overages, omissions in your estimates in real time, leading your team to having much more accurate scopes each and every single time that they're writing an estimate. Avoid any kind of potential conflicts with the adjuster and ensure that your estimates include every single warranted line item with the Actionable Xactimate Profile. Get your free demo today. If you head on over to value.getinsights.org/dominate, we've got an amazing offer for you. Again, head on over to value.getinsights.org/dominate and get your free demo today. Hey, Dominators, I want to talk to you about Impartial and how Impartial creates timely and accurate estimates for faster and fairer claims settlements. Impartial's intelligent toolkit leverages Matterport's 3D scanning technology to automatically generate mitigation and repair estimates. And with Impartial Scope, you can extract relevant data that's embedded within the pre-mitigation and the post-mitigation scans and generate objectively accurate Xactimate or Symbility estimates. Remove the administrative burden and finally accelerate your claims approvals with Impartial today. Dominators, never fill out another claim packet yourself or wait on hold for what seems sometimes to be hours on end to try to get a hold of a lost draft mortgage representative again. Surety was actually purpose-built to keep insurance proceeds flowing to vetted restoration contractors just like you, to relieve cash flow crunch and to reduce a lot of the common administrative burdens that happens when there's a mortgage company involved. So get paid for the work that you've done, get paid faster, get paid with a lot less effort, because listen, at the end of the day, it's your money. So if you want to go ahead and check out Surety, which I would strongly recommend that you do, head on over to your.surety.com/dominate. Again, that's your.surety.com/dominate. We got a really special offer for you. You'll be thankful you did. Hey guys, let me ask you a quick question. Do you want to get paid faster and collect more on your insurance invoices? Then listen, look no further than One Claim Solutions. OCS is an insurance billing specialist that works with adjuster on behalf of people just like us, restoration contractors, to accelerate our receivables cycle and, more importantly, increase our overall collections. Contractors that work with One Claim get their invoices paid on average in around 32 days. And in most cases, actually see an increase in the collections that more than offset the price of the service. So in a lot of ways, this makes OCS effectively free. And that's even before you start to count in the overhead savings that's tied to billing and all of the other administrative burdens that go along with that. So I tell you what, let One Claim Solutions deal with carriers so that you can spend more time on what matters most, which is running your business. Get your free consultation today. Head on over to oneclaimsolution.com/dominate. Once again, that is oneclaimsolution.com/dominate. All right. We are back. So let's get into the commercial side, right? Now we've already got the marketing stuff out of the way. There's we've got our presence. We're on our way, right? We've got a little bit of a nest egg now. Maybe we've hired, a sales rep or so. Walk us through the ERP and what that's all about and how we as restoration contractors can implement that.
Okay, so the ERP, and I'm sure plenty of people are familiar with it, maybe attempted to do it at some point, having success, didn't have success. The premise of the ERP is to have this value-based approach, this value selling, consultative selling. I think they're both kind of similar. The goal is to be able to get in front of your potential prospect, whether it be, a facilities person, a property manager, risk manager, who I love targeting, and try and obviously offer something of value to them by solving some of their pain. And that's the general approach to your outreach. Your outreach changes from, hey Rico, I'm Jeff over at XYZ Restoration. We do features and benefits. We do all these things. We suck up water. Would you have time to go to lunch with me? It becomes very difficult very quickly in that sales process to differentiate yourselves and start being able to establish a relationship with these facilities.
Right.
So we need a unique hook and a different approach, so that way they are willing to meet with us. And by doing that is we're going to help try and solve pain. And there's like the most common factors, which is you're trying to minimize disruption, you're trying to lower costs for them, you're trying to prevent future legality issues, and so on and so forth. And by doing this approach, you're telling them, you're asking, without trying to get into scripts and everything else, you're trying to focus on that. Not, we do water damage. Hey, have you had troubles in the past with, taking too long to recover from a water damage? Well, yeah, maybe my last company, I felt like, took everything out and took an extra week longer than they needed to. And so we're going to try and solve that pain. And then we present the solution at a much more oriented presentation, a much more specific presentation that I think that a lot of salespeople are doing when it comes to solving the pains of these facilities.
What do you think?
Obviously,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I was going to say more or less like what is it that you see is like the number, like the really, really big mistake that these business development, people are doing when they're approaching facilities managers? Because nothing to me is more disruptive than wanting to take me out for lunch, because to me, at least my approach, and mind you, I'm not the entirety of the market, but like to me, it's just like, listen, bro, I know what you're here to do. Like, you're not here really to be my friend. You could say that you want to feel my pain points all day, but this is your job. You need a new account, right? And lunch isn't quite going to get you that, because I had 5 of the people this week take me out to lunch. So, and I don't need another mouse pad. So.
Right. Yeah. And so, typically with our sales approach, and so we try to target where we actually have a presentation meeting where we're going to actually solve, hopefully, whatever pain points we can quickly discover in that initial meeting. So they're standing up in front of you, they walk into your office, and they might ask you, Rico, have you ever had any issues with, hiring and keeping technicians? Well, I can't hire and keep them that. Okay, great. Well, tell me a little bit more about that. Okay, what have you done in the past? Okay, if I could help you solve that problem, would you be would you have 30 minutes for me? Well, if that's a pain for you, then you're likely going to get that meeting. Mm-hmm. And then in that meeting, you're going to present that solution. Now, one of the things that people typically don't do is, one, they don't even have that approach, right? They don't even have the value added approach. They're not discovering pain. They're not finding out that hiring technicians is an issue. And if you're going into these property managers, you want to know what their issues are. And then, if someone walked into you and asked you that, and they said, well, how are you going to solve it? A lot of times they might try and sell you right then and there, versus going through the steps and procedures of setting up a formal meeting, and then the ERP overall is essential, an overall plan to accomplishing those tasks, right? Mm-hmm. So if someone said, well, getting you guys on site in the middle of emergency is always an issue. Or any restoration company, it takes time. I want to be able to lower costs, all these magic words. I want to be
Right.
able to prevent legal issues. Last time we had a guy in here, we thought we had a mold issue. Well, okay, you do your presentation, you do your meeting, and part of your solutions is, well, what if we stage a couple pieces of equipment there for you and your guys?
Mhm.
We'll stage, 3 dehues and 6 air movers, and you guys use it for your little small toilet overflows and whatnot. I'll come in and check on you guys quarterly. It's great quality touch points, great reason to be out there. You check on the hour reader, you bill them for the rental,
Mhm.
which maybe you give them a discount for. So you're getting money out of it. They have equipment there to help lower costs on super small stuff. So, and then your response time is 0 minutes, 0 seconds, right? Because when they have an issue, now they can start stabilizing the property.
Right.
So, and so I'm painting one picture that could be a multitude of different things depending on what it is.
Mhm.
So with Restoration ERP, to go specifically to that, one of the things that I want to do is I want to take it even to the next level. Like how are you guys managing your whole plan? Where is it located? How are you doing your relocation facility? When are you getting notified when these documents expire? How are you able to update it? How do you teach and educate your new employees when they onboard? They need to know where
Right.
the shutoffs are. It's so many times at these facilities, they're running through property managers. They don't know where it's at. Well, what if I had a solution where we'll take some photos, we'll do a walkthrough with you, and I'll upload all the photos, identify where the shutoffs are. We can even mark where all your utility rooms are, which vendor should be called for the sprinkler riser room, and so on and so forth. That way, security, third shift knows who to call in the middle of the night. Would that be helpful for you?
Yeah.
And that's value.
Yeah. 100%.
Right?
Right. Yeah. Because it's the
So,
small little nuances that you would think that even as the facilities managers that they immediately have the answer for it. And although they're not going to be at the building 24/7, right? That, late night shift may not have the right answer. They may not know where to go, right? So all of a sudden throughout your presentation, you sprinkle in these things of, hey, did you think about this? Did you think about that? What about this? And if I could do all of these things, would it be useful? You're like, man, actually, now that I think about it, hell yeah. Cause I don't want to do it.
hell yeah. And also, not only that, they're asking themselves, wow, geez, why isn't the current company I'm working with talking to me about this?
Right.
I've got this other company approaching me, offering me all of this. But that's what's going to help get you in the door. That's going to help hopefully close an ERP agreement, and then we can do what we all are great at, which is start building the relationship. Make sure you keep the communication working, and that's when you're servicing the account. But to get to that part, you have to be able to figure out a way to get your foot in the door, and that's where something like a disaster ERP plan with a value-based approach is a way to do that.
And how is it that your company is helping restoration companies do that? Exactly. Like, are you walking them through the training? Are you providing them with the tool? Like, again,
Yeah.
paint by
So
numbers for me.
So this is what we would call probably like a done with you service, right?
Mhm.
So like SEO is you hire them, they do the SEO. That's a
Yep.
done for you service.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you still have to have your salesperson. And that's going to be the most critical part in this whole thing. You want to make sure when you're hiring a salesperson, you put them through their normal personality tests, making sure that going after commercial work is ideal for their personality, right? Because building a relationship with insurance agents is very different than a facilities engineer. I mean, it just is. Not everyone's built for it. So make sure you understand that first. And what we do is we provide you an online cloud-based ERP solution where you go in there, you put in your ERPs when you essentially close the deal. And obviously you're going to want to leverage the fact that it's online and cloud-based and easy to use and access, anywhere from any device in your sales process, because it's going to help you sell it. And it's branded to the restoration company, right? So when I started building this, I took it from a restoration mindset, because I sold disaster ERPs. Well, what's going to be important? Well, the first thing is I don't want to show up with someone else's tool. I want to show up with my company's product. Now, what we offer is the ability to do that for any independent company. We even have some franchises actually using it, which is surprising that more people don't actually have this. Now, any company for $149 a month, Rico, which is the price of a DHU on a job site for a single day,
Mm-hmm.
can have a branded ERP online platform and compete with any technology ERP out there. I mean,
By
any.
the
Like
way,
we have.
sales lesson 101, notice how he qualified and quantified the cost. For the simple cost of a DHU in 24-hour period, you could compete with the big boys, no matter who you are. I love that, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I've
So,
done this before.
but it's true. Like, and then instantly overnight, you can walk into any facility, and we've seen it happen time and time again, where you can compete literally with any of them. You can gather any information. We have some of the other people that had a platform that actually come to us, and I forget where I was going because your compliment just completely threw me off. But
No worries.
what we're offering,
Yep.
what we're offering, and then we even actually can then, for an add-on, create them an app that's in the app store. And then now they're literally walking to a facility, they're opening up their app, they're showing them how to use it, and they can send push notifications to the facilities. So if anything is happening weather-related wise, just informational touch points, they can do that literally like an ESPN alert going to the top of their screen. So that's what we're equipping salespeople with. And I always look at it, right, like anything in a budget. Like, what is our budget broken up with? All of these are different tools in the toolbox. Your lunches, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, you're going to want your salesperson to be the right person on the bus. Otherwise, you're never going to have it, regardless of how fancy the tool is.
Yeah, and I really think that kind of approach is so much better, right, than the traditional quote unquote route marketer, where all they're doing is just coming by, shaking hands. Here's a couple, here's a box of Joe and some donuts and, a big smile and, just checking in, when you can actually, speak to an individual's pain and move them away from that, and you be that solution. And also, look, there's advantages at all times, right? Because there's tons of companies that and sales reps that are really, really good at starting a relationship, but then miraculously what happens is that they don't service that account very well, and they start to forget about that account, or that account starts to feel neglected, or there's just some kind of tension that starts between them. And that's why there's always an opportunity for you to have a real consumer centric approach, problem solve, and then always go ahead and be able to compete with, regardless of who's dominating the area.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite parts about this, to your point on the route marketing in terms of being a better approach, when you're a manager and you're managing these salespeople, like, the death to you is your sales rep coming back and saying, "Oh, I had a great lunch with XYZ. They said they're going to try us on their next call." Well, great. What's that mean? Like,
Yeah.
how often they have losses, and then, so the next thing you know, they go out the next month and they try and touch base. I mean, this is a process that is very difficult and very time consuming. Whereas in the ERP process, what we're looking for is a systematic, consistent, repeatable process that we could put prospects through our sales cadence. And when we get to the presentation point, which is hopefully relatively quick, we get a yes or a no. Either we're doing business with them, we're getting the agreement, we're going to be on site, we're doing walkthroughs, we're doing data collection, we're doing so much stuff. We've got it, and we've got the non-binding agreement. Or they say, no, great, no problem. Let's throw them back into the prospect list 6-12 months later. We can touch base with them, which, by the way, in the meantime, you should probably be putting them in some type of like email marketing, ongoing, follow-up automated sequence or something like that.
Right.
And then that allows you to, again, add a new person to your sales cadence and start from there, which I like that a lot. Like, we want some answers as a salesperson. Just tell me yes or no. And I think this in the commercial sales world is ideal, which is a lot harder to get in like the insurance agents.
Yeah. And the cost again is a total of, and is this per company? Is this per organization, the cost that you had given us?
The 149 is for up to 50 different ERPs. Okay. So you got one client that's got, it's a super large runway. Yeah. again, we don't want to get bogged down with users, right? So we want our end user, the facilities, to be using this, or at least aware it's there, whatever helps close the deal. Everyone's going to be a little bit different in terms of what their adoption rate is. But I mean, at the end of the day, the goal is that you've differentiated yourself so much that you've got the account and their information's there at the very least.
And I think that there's actually a little something special that you provided for all of the dominators out there as far as a free custom white label sign up, which is $150 off, correct?
$150 off. So typically there's like a one-time setup fee because we have to attach it to your site and all that stuff. So yeah, we're going to completely waive that for anyone that comes to Restoration Domination. And if anyone does want, and I don't know how we can get this out, Rico, or I'll get this over to you. We can upload it somewhere. I'm more than happy to provide one piece of our sales knowledge base. So part of when you sign up is you get sales and marketing material downloads, you get video walkthroughs, which alone can be worth, obviously the price. I mean, there's several courses. There's courses I teach at. And so I can provide to you our sales playbook, which actually has the sales cadence of what to do in step one, putting your prospects through a list, some tools to consider, scripts, so on and so forth.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And what we could do is not only could we have that on the restorationdomination.com episode here, but then also, and which by the way, there is going to be for everybody watching and listening, there is going to be a link in the video description below, as well as in the show notes. There's going to be a link to restorationerp.com/dominate, where you can go ahead and get all of those offers and all of that good jazz. By the time that this episode is released, all of that should be there, and that should be great. So Jeff, I mean, look, man, we covered a lot of ground, right? And of course, with these kind of topics, there's never enough time because, sales, marketing, closing, mindset, who to hire, when to visit people. There's like so many different things that go into actually closing a sale, right? But now that we're coming to the close of our interview and our time together, if you had to make if you really wanted to go ahead and say something that maybe we didn't cover that you think isn't discussed enough, or that more people should be asking about, what would you really want people to walk away with knowing?
I mean, it's a great question in terms of, I don't know what we haven't necessarily pinpointed without getting too off topic, but I think if you, as a company, always focused on delivering value at a great price, which, can be, in the case of an ERP, zero to these facilities, you're going to be able to differentiate yourselves and you're going to have success. So try and think outside the box. And there's many different ways to do that. So I think just continuously focusing on value and not only on what everyone else is doing.
Yeah. And I think that's beautifully stated, right? Focusing on value. And Jeff, anyways, as we wrap up, man, I just wanted to go ahead and say thank you so much for spending the time with us here today. It's always fun having a conversation with you. You've got so much knowledge and, so much enthusiasm for the business and what you're doing in order to, kind of awaken people to what the possibilities are with, new sales approaches and new tools that they can have in their tool belt. It's absolutely amazing. We are going to have all of the links and all of that good jazz, as well as the LinkedIn profile if anybody wants to get a hold of Jeff. And Restoration Dominators, look, get your ERP, learn more about it, right? If your marketing isn't on point, maybe you want to reach out to Jeff, right? I mean, this is the time to do it. Better time would have been sometime last year or the year before that. But if you haven't made it there yet, go ahead and do that. And always remember, in the name of Restoration Domination, we hustle, hack, dominate, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, your #1 resource for tips, tricks, and hacks to help your business grow. Subscribe to our channel and follow us for more Restoration Domination. And follow our host at Rico Garcia Jr. on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.